All right, let's give people a minute to jump in here.
While people are joining, Moritz, it's awesome to see you again.
Thanks, same here. It's really nice. And you have such a nice car in the background this time. Are you, where are you at the moment? Are you in Hawaii still, or are you in Japan?
Right now, I'm in Japan. This car was recycled, but I do have two of these cars. One of these cars is in Germany by the Nürburgring.
Nice.
Yeah, it's also black, and then I have two in California. All the rest are with customers or were crash tested or whatnot. But yeah, I still own. I still have ownership of three of them.
Cool.
We should do some.
Did you drive it around
Synera.
the Nürburgring?
I was going to ask, but I felt it would be unpolite to ask for a Nürburgring race.
we actually won the 24 Hours of Nürburgring, one of the classes, the 6-cylinder class. We were not electric yet.
Wow.
We were gasoline at the time. We won the V6 class of the 24 Hours of Nürburgring in 2014. Teamwikispeed.de. Now that car was more BMW than custom, but we did build it up and race it as an Agile team. And we learned a lot doing it. So we competed at arguably the top level of motorsport. And one time we even won.
Awesome.
Nice. Good. I think we can start. So hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We gave it the title Agile Hardware Development Insights and Best Practices from Industry Experts. My name is Daniel Löwen. I'm Business Operations Lead here at Synera, and I'm very happy to be your moderator today. And let's get into the topic. So since a couple of years, Agile is in everyone's mouth. Some companies are really working Agile. Some companies think they are working Agile, and some companies don't want to or are not in the boat yet at all. Software companies, on the other hand, nowadays are one step ahead, offering Agile solutions for businesses to tackle complexity, to speed up processes, to connect teams with each other. And they are accelerating fast and faster with iterations, with continuous improvements all the time. So the question is that we want to tackle in this webinar: how can companies employ such agile processes for revolutionizing also their hardware development? What are the obstacles that they're facing? How can they succeed? What does the path to success look like? And we will also give you an outlook like what is able to achieve, what they can achieve with this. And this is what we want to discuss with our experts here today. And this session is just a panel with only a few slides, short live demos, not to only talk about all of this theoretically, but rather to see also agile hardware development in action. We also want this to be an open discussion, so feel free to ask questions either directly in the chat or using the Q&A function in Zoom, and I will bring these questions into the discussion for the experts. And as you can see already, we have an amazing panel here today. We have, I would say, decades of experience, and all of this at the forefront of agile hardware development. So I'm very excited to welcome and to introduce you to our experts. And I will give you some background for each speaker, their function, the company, and then I would also ask you, the panelists, to tell us a little bit more about your company. Let's say, give us the elevator pitch. So first on the slide, as you can see here, is Marco Witzmann. And Marco is a former satellite engineer who was frustrated by the fact that engineers are losing countless hours working on siloed and outdated data, while software engineers, on the other hand, had amazing tooling at their fingertips. So in 2016, he co-founded Valispace, and Valispace is a digital productivity tool that helps engineers develop everything from coffee roasters to rockets. Marco, great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for me personally, as a big fan of basically everything coffee, I love that you are enabling companies also in that area. Can you tell us a bit about Valispace?
Sure. So Valispace is basically an engineering collaboration tool. That means that all engineers, instead of working on documents that they send back and forth, like version 2, final 3, they actually collaborate on the same kind of data. And we do that along the engineering lifecycle, which means we start with early requirements engineering, then help people with doing detailed design where we connect to their more sophisticated simulation tools, and then all the way to validation and test, so that whatever you design actually fits the initial requirements that you had. And the main thing that we basically do with companies is to help them to go from a waterfall approach where people go through it once and then find a lot of mistakes, and your project takes 10 times the amount of money and 5 times the amount of time, to help them do that in a more agile way, to basically do fast iteration cycles and quicker getting to results.
Awesome, thanks, Marco. One of the companies, not a coffee roaster, but an aerospace company that is using Valispace to enable them in their hardware development is Reflex Aerospace. And we're happy to have Alexander Genze here with us on this panel. Alex is the co-founder and COO of Reflex Aerospace, and their company is set to revolutionize and accelerate the way high-performance satellites are designed as well as manufactured. He's an aerospace engineer by training. He was active at the Bundeswehr University in Munich and led several research projects in the small satellite and launcher domain. He also co-founded the Space Founders startup accelerator that is based in Munich and Toulouse. Morning, Alex.
Hello, good morning from Munich.
Can you elaborate a little bit what Reflex Aerospace is focusing on?
Yes, so Reflex Aerospace is a satellite manufacturing startup, 1.5 years old, around 30 people in Munich and Berlin. And what we're trying to do is bring the innovation speed that we've seen in lots of industries, be it sensor technology, be it consumer electronics, also into the space domain. So satellite technology traditionally has been dominated by very long-term, non-agile, to use that terminology, projects in the public sector domain. And we believe that lots of pain points from our customers which want to operate some kind of payload in space, and at the moment need to wait a very long time until the satellite is built, designed, and up in space, that can be solved. And how do we do that? We need to accelerate the way how this hardware is developed, and that in a customer-specific, tailor-made way. And I'll elaborate why we think that's important and how the tools, namely Valispace and also Synera, are helping us to do that.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. As our third speaker today, and we heard that he's joining us from all the way from Tokyo in Japan, Joe Justice. Joe's the author of Scrum Master, which is published in 7 languages. He has worked with Bill Gates, with the leadership team at Amazon. He operated, and I think also founded the Agile program at Tesla for Elon Musk. He founded Wikispeed, which became an example of automotive design and production speed in a fun and also egalitarian culture. He enjoys collaborating as a board member, writing, teaching, and running companies to make a good future arrive faster. I'm really excited to have you with us today and hear and learn more from your experience that you have gathered in all of these different companies I just mentioned. And beforehand, you said, like, I have like 5 companies. Can you elaborate?
You're too kind, Daniel. You're too kind. Many people know I'm a big advocate of digital self-management, having a shorter feedback cycle by basically having an AI coach you as opposed to a human. And then self-manage, you get feedback from the AI and then you make improvements. That's led me to plug into a number of companies and found a few more in spaces where there were gaps. Currently, what I put on my name here is abi-agile.com. One company I founded is now the largest, I believe, Agile online training company, I think in Asia. I aim for it to be the largest Agile training company in the world. And I hope not just Agile, right? There's plenty of tech that doesn't have to be limited to only the keyword Agile. But a lot of it's around online training now. But I'm also involved with Cyberlander as an advisor. That's a camper, like an armored, hardened camper for the Tesla Cybertruck, which is made by a totally separate company called Stream IT. and I advise their manufacturing process there. A number of others, Embry-Riddle Aeronautics University, I get to advise some platooning vehicle technologies for city mobility. I get to learn a lot by being plugged in that way, in addition to running my own firms. I'm really excited to get to hang out with Synera and Valispace again, and Reflex Aerospace. Alexander, I'm happy to be here with you also. So let's enjoy our time together, everybody.
Awesome, thanks, Joe. Last but not least, I'm happy to welcome Moritz from Synera to the panel. Moritz is our co-founder, our co-CEO, and he's responsible for sales and marketing at Synera. His mission to empower engineers to code is based on many years of expertise as a development engineer, as a consultant, software developer, generative design expert. And this is in addition to senior roles in scientific research and also a PhD in product development processes. Morning, Moritz.
Hi, everybody. Nice to be here.
Can you give us a short intro to Synera?
Yes, sure. So yeah, as you have said it, we've been going through all the pain of product development ourselves. So we have been engineers for over roughly 20 years doing hardware development, and at some point it just felt some kind of annoying to not be able to develop as agile as software could be developed. And so we decided, oh, what could be a solution for that? And we are on a mission to actually bring the methodology and the software tools that actually software developers are using. And you called it like we train engineers to program to the hardware development world. Yeah, and so we came up with an idea of low code, which is easy to use for non-programming experts. And I'm pretty happy to be able to talk about this today.
Awesome, thanks, Moritz. I just launched a poll because before starting this expert panel, I would like to capture the status quo in our audience today. So please go ahead and answer the 2 questions in the poll that I just started. So the first one is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how agile do you rate your hardware development right now? And then the second question, and you can select a few of the answers there. In what area are you facing the biggest challenges? And while we wait for the results to come in, and I see already a lot are coming in, I'll do a, let's say, quickfire round in this panel. We will dive into this in more detail, into the challenges. So very shortly, what do you think, in what area do you see companies struggle the most? Let's start with Marco. Muted?
Yes, so I think struggling the most, what we see is that companies, they know that they want to be faster and so on, and they have their daily activities ongoing. And now the question is, how do you combine those 2 things? And what we see is that the one way to do it is just to pick whatever project is coming up new and just start making it a slightly bit better, right? Instead of seeing it as a big project and something that is so big that you can never touch it, to just get started with the lowest amount and make it better the first time, make it better the next time. You're already getting into the feeling of working in an agile way if you change your company in an agile way.
Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, so I tend to agree. So it's about implementing. So the challenge or the difficulty is on one hand implementing holistic processes which will function across the entire value chain of all operations, which is needed for it to be successful in the end. But at the same time, not to be too perfectionistic and try to get it all right before doing all these small steps that you need. So the question is, how can I do small steps to get to a big goal? Because often you would think, okay, to get to the big thing, I need to do big steps, but that's the challenge. Cut that in small pieces that function across the whole company, all operations.
Mm-hmm. Then Joe and then Moritz.
Did you say me and then Moritz? Yeah, sure. A lack of pipeline. Software teams have developed over basically since the 80s, pipeline, DevOps, automated test, automated deploy. Software in many languages is to the point now where as you type The software auto-completes lines and functions and guesses for you. And with ChatGPT, you can add a co-pilot that will add whole sections of code for you by basically hunting around through history of what people have written before and pasting it in. And it works pretty well. That doesn't exist very much outside of software. And if people look at why did a software project in 1990 take 3 years, and an equivalent or more robust software project with much higher quality and security considerations taken into account take less than an hour now. Why? How? Well, it's this pipeline, it's the tooling, in addition to people having much more experience now. Having that tooling be available is a massive opportunity for all industries. And right now, almost only software has it.
Absolutely. I totally agree. It's the combination of having the right mindset, the right tooling, the right pipelines, as you called it. And what I experience the most when I'm asking my customers, how are you actually working Agile? It's maybe risk that is the most barrier that holds them for actually executing. Because, I mean, it's something new and you have to meet deadlines, you have to bring up results. And if you change the process, you might fail in the first run. So it's about, am I willing to take the risk to change something in order to maybe fail, but there's so much potential. So I guess this is for me, it's the main question. I'm able to, or I'm willing to take the risk.
We look at the results of the poll, and I just shared them. We see like the status quo is, I would say, leaning towards a 4.5, let's say, average in our audience right now of the status quo in agile hardware development. And most people seem to struggle with the methods and processes, less with tools, even more with people. So the people involved. And we have already a question in the Q&A that I think could fit very nicely here. And that is from Jaime, who asks, how can agile culture clash with cultural barriers of different countries? So really the people in there. Americans, Germans, Japanese, for example, have very different cultures. So who would like to answer that one?
Yeah, maybe it goes into the perfectionism. So if you are, let's say, a German team, which is very structured and working in KPIs and processes, and then you have maybe even like a Spanish team or like an American team who are more like maybe agile, let's call it that way. This might clash at some point because you need to align on the degree of readiness or the degree of acceptance in order to iterate fast. And this is something I think where different cultures maybe struggle with somehow. But I guess also, Joe, you have lots of insights into those multicultural teams, I guess.
Great products have come out of every single culture, and they were great for different reasons. And there's a reason there's not only one culture on planet Earth, right? There's something absolutely beautiful treasure. In Japan, where I am right now, people wait for their superior very often before they make a decision. And that makes a culture fantastic for group work. The person who makes the decision, sometimes now in these more agile companies in Japan, are joining the development group using that technique called mob, which we've talked about before. And then you have this power of the leader there, which has almost the respect is so high, it's almost an aura, you know, our super engineer or our super decision maker or senpai or senior, right? They're in the group. And really, sometimes I am working with these groups and they talk about the hand of God is how they refer to these people who, you know, are just kind of normal people, but they are skillful. Just the respect is so high. Well, when they do the together work, you get this massive energy. And also traditional lean queuing theory, less time spent waiting for a decision. So you have a double benefit. When I'm lucky enough to be working with teams in Europe, in specific, several of you mentioned in different areas of Germany, automated quality tests fit so well because people carefully audit as we all should, what these tests are actually testing and what they might be missing, and to what level we can trust them. And when a team that is highly passionate about quality and detail says, yes, we can automatically move to the next step when this test pass or this battery of tests pass, that is a phenomenal confidence feeling. And we have to keep rechecking because the pipeline and the process changes. Depending on the culture, different agile practices seem to become superpowers. Now, interestingly, no culture is as extremely separated as they were even 20 years ago, right? There is emerging this more global internet culture to some point, right? But still, people matter, as the poll just showed. And I would say that helps us select which agile practice plays to the superpower of the group we are lucky enough to be working with.
And maybe this question from Matthias fits very well to this one. Maybe you can continue your train of thought on this one, Joe, because he said it's not so much the cultural barriers, but rather the industry ones, like automotive and aviation, working in heavily certification reliant industries. And this pushes companies into a more bureaucratic and slow process of validation, which instills a fear of change throughout the hierarchy. Maybe very close, shortly, the answer.
We're less constrained than a lot of us think we are. The law in most areas very often says, here's the process and flow we use as our example. You are fully allowed to propose and use a different process as long as you justify that it is equal or superior. Very often, that's what the law actually indicates. Now, that puts it on you. Now, in a traditional bureaucratic company, we don't have the ambition to fund an initiative. In a traditional bureaucratic company, no one has the individual authority to take on that themselves because it's a bureaucratic company. So you'd need someone to fund an initiative to create your proposal of your agile model to reply. So very often I'm told I have to use the V model, I have to use Prince2, I have to use so on and so on. And I ask, did you read the law? And the answer 100% of the time is no. Even when I talk to the legal teams in these companies, the answer 100% of the time is no. So in select cases, I have had to translate, or sometimes I can read the law. And each time I've done that, it says, or you can propose your counter process. That's fully allowed, provided you take the time to justify it. So we're not as constrained as we think we are, step one. Now it becomes an organizational issue. Can we get funded in an initiative to propose a superior process that will, we hope, our experiment is, pay off as a core differentiator, you know, our rate of change. For example, Tesla did. Giga Bradenburg, Tesla made 6,000 Model Ys before that building even had a permit. They were all pre-production, they all had to be crushed. But Tesla went into as mass manufacturing as they could right away. They didn't wait for anything. So if they could make 100 Model Ys in a day, they did. They didn't wait for permit day, right? Well, the permit came, and then Tesla applied. They said, and we know this is unusual, but we tested every car we built in pre-production. They pass every test. May we still sell them? And the German and EU government said yes. So sometimes you're not as constrained as you think you are.
Yeah, good thought. Our first question that we planned for this panel very much goes into the direction of the one that Ram posted into the Q&A, because he says it's a bit contradictory for hardware startups to have everything mapped out. Established processes can be optimized, but when a new hardware team develops something, there's no idea where, what could go wrong and what needs how much iteration and further testing, verification, validation, and how should this trade-off be achieved? And we thought in the preparation for this panel about very similar things, like the long processes in the past of years it takes to develop and improve on even single parts. That's now meeting this agile planning with constantly changing customer requirements, where companies must act fast. And this also sets new requirements to the tools in the product development process. So how can I find this balance, this trade-off? How can I find out where I stand? How do I know if I'm ready to set up, ready to tackle these requirements? Maybe Moritz, you can talk to that one.
Yeah, so at the very beginning, I guess you all have an outcome, a goal in mind. So you want to develop something, and this is like the foundation. And I tend to then look into the process, how to come to this final product. And sometimes if you are like an established company, there is already there, everything is there. That's an advantage because you can follow and you know with a certain predictability that it will succeed. But it's also a chance for not having these established processes yet. So you can choose at the moment, and you can like accelerate it by using the latest insights and the latest tools. So it's a great opportunity, but it also comes with challenges because you have to reinvent. So it's kind of like a play, and also like, again, it's like an adventure that you have to take, or you might take. And of course you can choose for the established processes and tools, and you will end up at the same speed that the current development companies have at the moment. But this, as a startup, might not be the best solution, in my opinion. So you have to look into how actually can I apply tools, methods, my culture, everything that is necessary to actually come to the final product in the fast possible way to exceed what is the status quo on the market at the moment. And yeah, of course, it's a huge thing. But I guess there are so many experts here already in the panel that can tell how this could be done. And I guess Alex, for example, is a really great example of actually having done this before and actually doing this at the moment as a startup that is using agile methods and tools in order to get the product development done. So maybe, Alex, you have some insights for us here.
Yeah, so let me start with some comments why this agile development approach is so important in aerospace right now, and specifically for us. Yeah? So if you think about space traditionally, you think about very long duration projects. Yeah, typically from government defense domain, things like that were not characterized by the agile. So now we've seen a huge push in the commercial direction. This is what lots of people refer to as new space. Yeah? So space technology that is built on the basis of commercial factors, yeah. So not just government applications, and so this is a very huge cultural clash that you can see if you compare many startups that have been born in this domain and compare them with typical corporations. So what we want to do specifically is build custom-made, customer-specific satellites, which means that they are individual for every satellite. So what is the major challenge? I think it's quite obvious for the people here, but maybe still worth repeating it. The challenge is to create a holistic value and process chain that is capable of delivering individualized outputs, but the process itself has to be standardized, transparent, and it has to adhere to certain principles of quality assurance, obviously, yeah? Because this is also one of the big challenges that is often overseen. How can I guarantee quality, correct documentation for a project which essentially is everything the same thing, everything every time is different one? And I think there's also a very interesting analogy in what we're seeing in the electric vehicle domain, and which is an industry where we're getting a lot of inspiration for our manufacturing concepts, that we see that the amount of variation, the amount of different series is getting more, and the quantity of produced vehicles is getting less. So more customization, yeah. For example, all these delivery trucks for different kinds of companies, they all have specific requirements what they want to put in the truck. So I think this is something that is starting to creep into all different kinds of industries. Yeah. So what I really want to stress is the issue is and the problem is not only building this, but one problem that I also think often is overlooked is from a regulations perspective, from a quality assurance perspective. How do we make sure that what we deliver is correctly certified and documented, and who will, let's say, credit that? And that's why also these kinds of tools are getting interesting, because as we'll see later, maybe in the demo, I'll show a bit that yes, you can trace certain things. You can have certain checkpoints, milestones, and so on. And yeah, that's personally one point I'm curious about, is how will we in the future deal with regulations and quality assurance processes in a world that is getting more customized.
Thanks, Alex. We have two questions in the chat that go in the same or in a similar direction. They both talk about the standard project management waterfall system and how to get started. So maybe Marco, what are the low-hanging fruits when I first get in touch with this topic?
Yeah, I think I also saw the question there from Mahesh, I think, which was also the question. I mean, how can you even take this from software where you can test all the time and you don't have like an actual physical product, and you then want to apply this, right? And I brought a mini software demo that I think will show how to get started with these kind of things, so how we think at Valispace about this. And one way to think about it is you usually have a specification, you know what you want to build, right? That's what Moritz said before, right? So you do have usually like some kind of a specification in some place, and what you can do is you can just get started with figuring out, okay, I have a whole list of things that I want my product to be doing, and you can work in an agile way on top of requirements, right? You don't even have to build a single product yet to find inconsistency, to improve your design. So what you do in Valispace is you bring those kind of requirements in, and what we do is we help you then identify the values in those. So there's usually numbers in them. And what you want to do next is you want to actually start calculating with them, right? So what we do is we recognize that there is actually numbers in this. So you treat it as more than text. And suddenly what you can do with these numbers is you can plug them into your simulations. You can actually see where they come from, how they are translated, how these requirements relate to each other. And here you can already work in a very agile way on top of it, right? You can decide how you want to link different requirements to each other, like, for example, how your structure should look like, so that you can accommodate, in this case, for 300 kilograms of luggage on your helicopter, right? So the key point here is design happens a lot of time on system level, right? And you need collaboration for this. So you need to be able to talk to each other about specific parts of what you're doing in real time, not sending an email with a document, waiting until it's there. You should be able to actually, like you see here, discuss a specific value, have a discussion whether this makes sense or not, and then directly resolve problems immediately on it. And that's basically what allows you to then, in the end, so that you can show that you built the right thing, output any kind of documentation that you might need for certification and so on. So the key step here is basically, you don't have to build the full product and iterate on it. What you can do is you can start modeling your product, start improving the product in an agile way. And that is as fast possible as it is in software, right? You can, as fast as this, collaborate on it. But the main thing that enables that is to not treat it like text documents. If you're thinking of doing that with spreadsheets or with doing that on PDFs, you will never get into that, because you will have inconsistencies, you'll have copy paste, and you'll not be able to like work on the actual data. So what you need to do is to move away from this thought that documents are the source. You have to move into a way where you work on the data, collaborate on the data, and then treat documents as an output that you need to show to the outside world at the end of it, that yes, you did follow the process, and whatever tooling you use should take care of tracking all the changes and so on, so that in the end, like Joe said, you can go to the certification body and say, well, look, we actually did the engineering the right way, right? Although we did it in an agile way, we have the full history of what we did, what were the reasons why we made certain changes. Here's the full flow of how this design was derived. And that's both useful to certify, but also to what Alex said, to make sure that it actually works, right? Like, you actually want to send something to space that doesn't explode. So you want to be sure that it worked. And the traceability of that process in this agile way of working allows you to do that.
I think that's a good segue to Alex. Like, how do you achieve sending something to space that doesn't explode?
So First of all, if we speak about agile development in aerospace, then we have to consider that sometimes things will explode, and that's an entire different issue that the industry has to learn to take that risk and react to it. Yeah, but maybe that's the interesting part. Maybe I don't have to sell people that things won't explode, but that I will be able to rapidly integrate what I've learned in the first explosion in the second system so that it won't explode anymore. For me, that's the more important question, right? So the question is, if I develop in an agile way, if I develop rapidly, it's not the problem if it explodes. The problem is if it explodes, or even if it works, but I can't reproduce what I've done. So I can't get any learnings from what I've done in the project. So that's kind of more the important and interesting thing. And that's what I personally think why the tools we're speaking about now here, specifically Synera, is interesting, because as we'll see later, the workflow, how are things correlated? Yeah, it's really graphic and visual in most cases, also to see what has happened, and then also to get learnings out of that. See, okay, where was maybe the mistake, and then really rapidly being able to adjust it, not having to start again from scratch, but to tweak the process that I had implemented and run it again until it doesn't explode anymore.
Well, if you have brought a demo, please, we would be interested to see it.
Sure. Okay, then let me share my screen. So the purpose of this demo is mostly to, first of all, showcase how Valispace and Synera can be integrated, and just give you an overall idea of what an industry application is. So obviously this is a simplified example for the purpose of this demo, but is representative in its character. So please let me know if you can see this video.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Okay, so for the purpose of this presentation, let's just assume that a satellite is a box with solar panels flying in space, which is exactly what it is actually. And this is a model of a spacecraft, simplified, as I said, that would be one of the products that we are building, or the main product that we are building. And as I've mentioned before, we are a manufacturer of the satellite platform. That means that we provide a system that is able to sustain some kind of payload in space. Our customers provide a payload. For example, here, this small little box, which could be a laser communications terminal or anything. And to get the perfect satellite for our customer, because we are very customer centric, we want to not build a standardized satellite and then force our customers to adapt their payload to our system, but go the other way around. So we build a tailor-made satellite around this payload. So we need to figure out different configurations, and we also need to have a repeatable process which can output the perfect configuration for different customers. Standardized process, but tailored outputs every time. So some advantages of using Synera and Valispace in a combination of both is what I want to show here. Yeah? So this is, let's say, our satellite model. And as a first step, we will look at the Valispace page to see what kind of variables we want to work with. In this case, a very simplified, just a maximum mass and a maximum volume. Now, this is a restriction that could be imposed, for example, by the launch vehicle. This is just the mass in space that we have at our disposition here. 130 and 1.2 would be these values in Valispace right now. All right, so how can we do that? We first need to make it run an API. So we'll use a web client using a base URL, get some authorization tokens, do a web request, and then get authentication. These are just steps in the process I won't explain in detail. But at the end, we will be able to send this web request, to get this Valispace information that we're interested in. In the end, we need to filter out some stuff to get these two values, 130 and 1.2, into Synera. Now the interesting part, how we want to apply this to our workflow. So this is supposed to represent the workflow. This box, main irregular shapes, which is the satellite model, It's inputs from Valispace, in this case, the maximum allowable mass and maximum allowable volume. And what we want to know now for our own design, again, simplified example, are moments of inertia and current design mass and current design volume. Now let's have a look in what happens inside. This is our workflow, that we have implemented in Synera. We run it. We'll see it later, how it looks like. And then these values will be updated. And now we can see how in Valispace, again, these values are updated and input into the program. So here we have the current moments of inertia for the free axis and design volume and current design mass. So this is one iteration. And now the interesting question is, what happens if we want to change the configuration? For example, the customer payload would dictate that the position of solar array, so the position of the payload itself, is changed. So what we're doing here is, for example, change parameters of the payload, moving it in a certain direction, or moving the solar panels in a direction. These are all these kind of changes we might want to try out to get to the perfect configuration, which is also representative a bit of the human work you still have to put in. So this is also something I want to stress. Of course, the interesting part here is to augment and enhance what human engineers do by changing certain things, but that the process then is able to react to that quickly, and you don't have to do a new model every time. So let's see what happens here. We've changed these things in the design workflow, positions of stuff, and now we'll run the web request again, and then we will see how this is run. And finally, these values are then again updated in our Valispace database. So really a simple example just to show how these tools can be used together and exchange information with each other. So what is the advantage for our engineering team, for our developing team in the end? So this allows us to try out different kinds of configurations, change some things, see what are the consequences for the overall system, and is a lot faster than starting from scratch every time, obviously doing new computer models and running this process manually all the time. So a great enhancement, so to say, for the human engineering work that needs to be done in any case, and obviously something you can expand and make more complex. This is just a simplified example, but I hope it gives you a good overview on what's possible with this integration.
And let me just add maybe one thing to the question before, right? The whole point is now, if it looks so obvious that you have a database of your current engineering values and that you automate a way how you do in a quick way these iterations, it is because it is the obvious thing that should be done. But it's if you think about your own product and your own companies, that's probably not how it is, right? I think we always have to figure out what the difference is. The reality is that to do the same thing that Alex just showed in 20 seconds, you would have usually probably have gone into 3 different documents, have to open up 4 different software suites, have tried to find the values, trying to adjust the things, then generate a different report and so on. So all of this chain of things has just basically been reduced now into a few seconds of work, and everyone on the team has been made aware of these changes and can immediately work on them. And that speaks again to what we had before as a topic, that you don't need to have built that hardware to have iterated fast now. Your iteration cycles just became so much shorter before you even touch the first screw.
It always remembers me a little bit of the classical, I guess, Joe, you mentioned the V model, which is actually the classical way. And what we've seen here that Alex showed us is actually nothing else than iterating in an insane speed through this whole validation model. So you can change requirements, you have all the engineering done in algorithms, so it's code at the end that we're talking about, and that enables you to iterate fast. And this is actually the fundament of working agile. You need to try out things. Maybe it's a requirement that changes, or you can also think, I guess, you mentioned AI as a little topic before. You can think about having this automated by some, assistant for you doing this stuff. So there's lots of opportunities because you opened up the space to actually work as software engineers, work with code, with, I guess you named it, Marco, with numbers, not documents. So you're not trying to do it manually in all the different software tools, in text documents and stuff. This is at the end only the output that you can automatically produce if you want, if you have the requirements to do so, but you are super fast in the process in between due to this whole automation and the digitalization of the process itself.
Awesome. And I think when you're talking about AI, Moritz, I think Marco had also some nice demo that he brought with him, because if we are looking to the more forward-facing outlook and talking about one of the hype topics in tech in the last few months, it is of course ChatGPT, it is BART, it is AI, conversational AI, and so the question would be, where does the journey lead us in this area when it comes to agile hardware development?
Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity. And I think it's the first one. So what I'm going to show here is actually an alpha stage of something that we're going to release only in 2 weeks. So this is the first time we show it to the world. But basically, we're a strong believer that the future of engineering is going to be assisted. We believe that it's going to be about assisted engineering. And I'm going to just quickly showcase what that looks like in practice when you actually use that. And this is a functionality in Valispace that we're about to release. So basically, imagine that you start with a requirement and you want to start working with something. And the first instinct of what you want to be doing is you might just write the electrical power subsystem shall not exceed 100 kilograms. That's a good place to start, but you know already that this is not everything that you need to say about the mass. So you can now improve that requirement in Valispace with a single click and be able to use AI to basically get from this very simple requirement into a far more complex requirement, which talks about how it should be tested, what the materials should be, and so on. But as every good requirement engineer knows, that's a requirement that still has a lot of things in one single place. So with Valispace, you're also able to break down this requirement into different subsystems. So if we're now taking this one requirement and breaking it down, Valispace is now able to basically take this and create from this requirements within seconds that you can then directly put. And since we say this is all about putting them into the electrical subsystem, you can then therefore immediately go into your electrical specification, get all the identifiers right, and start working now on those requirements. You will have them linked, so parent and child relationships. So what you see is the process that usually a person would take now took seconds. And now you have something that you can improve on, right? Like it doesn't mean that this is the final requirement, but it just got you rolling so much faster. And then if you want to create requirements from scratch, you're also able to just say something very simplistic, like we need to build in an AI assistant for our software. And then what Valispace will do, it will automatically generate all the right requirements for this, be able to input them. And as I showed before, later, if there's numbers in them, start actually parameterizing them so that you can use them in simulations and so on. So these are all brand new functionalities. We're going to release them probably in the next 2 weeks. So if you want to be basically directly informed when this happens, please go to valispace.com, and we have an alpha version that you can sign up for, so that you're informed when those features come out, so that you can try them yourself.
Looks awesome. Maybe with this, excuse me, I would like to go back to Joe and ask you, Joe, what can you achieve with agile hardware development? You see now the integration of AI into such tools. Maybe you can talk a bit about the extent of possibilities, what is achievable, because I see we have a lot of questions in our Q&A that we won't be able to answer in the last 10 minutes. We're already 5 minutes over time, sorry about that. But maybe you can show a little bit of an overview of what can we achieve.
Oh, Daniel, I love it, and I'm happy to. First, let me say, if there's any comments or questions for Valispace or Synera or for Reflex Aerospace, I think all the contact information is going to be shared, I think, in the chat and then also on the recording. Anything for me, you can put @JoeJustice on Twitter. It's easy to get a hold of me. So any of the questions you put in, if we don't get to them, if you want to tweet and @me, and also @Synera, Valispace, Reflex Aerospace, please do. I'd be very happy to continue the conversation on social media. I'm also on LinkedIn and Zing and Facebook. So that question, we're in a super exciting time when it comes to pace of change. What Agile seems to do well is increase the pace of change. That's the game, right? Instead of every 2.5 years having an update, which is normal in automotive, a minor model change is typically a 2.5-year cadence for every company historically. And in aerospace, typically slower than that. Well, we're seeing it be different now. We're seeing meaningful updates in things like acceleration, range, total power, ease of use of cabin control, stability of cabin temperature, noise, vibration, and harshness, like traditional metrics, seat comfort. We're seeing those change as often as every 2 days. It's a really interesting time. This promise of agility has arrived in hardware, and that's made a very exciting ecosystem. In aerospace, cost per kilogram into orbit has dropped multiple times in the last 60 days. That's unusual. Before, you'd wait for an entire new rocket system, and that might be a decade or more. And now it's happening multiple times a month. It's happening inside a month. So core metrics for these industries, meaningful metrics. For example, an electric car, the peak available horsepower is increasing, sorry, horsepower. Well, what's that in kilowatts? It's about 70 horsepower up a month. What? What a crazy time to be a car enthusiast. And the price is going down as that's happening. Like never before in the history of these industries has the rate of change ever been more fun or more favorable. For example, remember lean engineering, design for Six Sigma, etc. Remember lean. The reason all of us, I think, got really excited about lean is when a car was made by Toyota, even outside Japan as they expanded, Toyota made more money on that car than every other company making an equivalent car, roughly equivalent car. And that was shocking. People got so excited about that, they would go to Nagoya to watch how these cars are built. They learned some Japanese words like Kaizen and Hansei. And why? Why is the profit margin higher on a relatively, arguably equivalent vehicle when Toyota makes it versus anybody else? Well, Agile has landed. And now we see some companies with 8 times the profit margin per equivalent vehicle of Toyota. Like these core metrics that changed careers, changed industries are forgotten and irrelevant now. I mean, Agile has eaten the world. There's a great article, Software Has Eaten the World, about how software deployed everywhere has increased the pace of innovation, and we get a faster pace of improvement. Well, it's not software projects that took 2 years or 3 years to get done. It's the ones that have updates and experiments being run multiple times a day. And I've got data behind that if you go to abiagile.com and join the hardware software class or any of the foundations classes. The brilliant statement by Marco that we're making engineers be able to complete more and more of the meaningful work as if it were software, that is the radical enabler. And it's not that it's software, it's that now it's Agile. The cost to change is super low, laughably low, seconds. I mean, basically the speed of compute. And then when you have assisted engineering, the speed and creativity, in a way, gets amplified again. And possibly the quality. We have GANs, competing assistants, also checking each other and also checking each other's checking to increase the way we check quality, not only the quality check. So the end result is pace of innovation has never been higher in hardware. And even the exciting numbers like peak power, cabin spaciousness, crash safety have never been higher. And these numbers are changing as often as every 2 days. So please enjoy Agile to the extent you can. I saw the poll, people are like, it's a people problem. I get that. It's not that everyone in your company is saying, work on shorter iterations. And some people think that means lower quality and have all kind of misconceptions. Well, send them to my training. I solve the people problem part that I'm good at, and then roll out Valispace and Synera so that you start to solve the tool chain, and you'll already be having the results. Start where you can, start where people are interested. Maybe you can install the tool already, even if you're not able to change from the V model yet.
Thanks, Joe. I see that we are time-wise coming to a close here. So for the last question, I would like to pose to all of you, maybe a ending statement, so to say. What is the one advice you would give to our audience today if they want to get started with employing these agile processes in their hardware development? Let's start with Alex.
My advice is not to think and to plan too much. Start with one first small step, and done is better than perfect.
Good advice. Moritz.
I tend to say go to Synera.io and use the free trial, but I don't say this. So yeah, as Marcus said, I guess at the beginning, it's all about like starting with the low-hanging fruits. Maybe you can see where you tend to have the biggest pain and the most iterations in the past. And there, this could probably be a good starting point. And I tend to ask the question to the engineers, what is the most annoying task that you do every day? And this is something where you should deep dive. And if somebody says, well, I'm always doing this and this and this and this might be a good starting point to digitalize and optimize.
Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, for me, it's you don't have to do this alone, right? If you have the feeling it could be faster, right? There is people who've done this. There is people who've seen this. Like we've done this with hundreds of companies by now and helped them basically get somewhere. And we've even seen that in big organizations, like you said, Joe, in the beginning, right? People are not as constrained as they think they are. What we found is even in big organizations, usually the management, if they look at engineering and they see that inside the engineering domain, there are people who are able now to just move 10 times as fast as they were before, they're not going to block you from doing this if they can show that this provides good results at the same time as speed increase. So I think it's all about having the courage to just ask someone who has done it, right, which is probably several of us in this panel, help you set up something small where you can show the results immediately. And with those results, you'll get the buy-in as a second step. So it doesn't need to be the chain of first asking for the big project before you can get started. It might be very well the other way around.
Thanks. And Joe,
I'm a fan of
what does it
asking
need
for
to get started?
I'm
advice?
a fan of asking for permission, saying, can I run an experiment, maybe with my team of 4 or 5 or 30 or 3,000? I mean, you pick, and maybe we can do it for 90 days or a year. Can we run an experiment? And even if the answer is no, look what our sphere of influence is. Like maybe you have permission to experiment with the free trial of a tool. Maybe you have authority to try group work for 1 hour a day. I'd recommend MOB as a framework for group work. Think what's easy. If you want success, start with what's easy. Start with what makes you easily successful. And ask for permission to see if you can grow that sphere of what's easy. And all it takes is one shield person. I mean, I don't want to say leader. That's like, you don't have to have a hierarchy for this to happen. But one person to say, I give you permission to the extent that I have it. And you want that written. You want that in an email at least, or screen capture the chat or whatnot. And then go for it. Go for it within those bounds.
Awesome. With that, our time is up since 15 minutes. Sorry about that. To the audience, thank you a lot for being so engaged. We had a ton of questions that we couldn't answer in this short time, but we will follow up on those. Also, I posted all the contact details in the chat, so feel free to get in contact with all the speakers. Thank you to all the panelists for giving us tons of insights today. And we hope that everyone takes away these insights, got inspired to look more into agile hardware development in their companies. And yeah, get in contact if you want to see how to get started. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
For the rest,
Thank you very much. Thanks, Daniel, for moderating.
Daniel, so
Pleasure.
much. Perfect moderation.
Bye.
If you'd like to stay and answer one more question for these attendees that are still here, for the topics that you would like to see us do in the future, I guess there are some nice ones that we could do, get some great experts today, today. And yeah, Joe.
I have a question for you, Daniel.
Yes.
Can you post these questions somewhere? I mean, I've asked people to send them to me on social media, but even better if they're posted directly and officially on Synera's social media. Where can I possibly find these so that I can contribute my thoughts on them too? So I can put my answer there as well, along with any other panelists and anyone else.
Yeah, social media is a great idea. We will follow up on that one. I'm not sure where we can do this best. Maybe Twitter is a great space, maybe LinkedIn. Let's see. We will definitely follow up on this. And I think there's a lot of questions also directed to you, Joe, that you can definitely help with.
Well, great. If you do post them, and please tag me so I can see immediately. Thank you. Have a great morning.
You too. Take care. Great, thanks for answering, everyone. I will close the poll now, and with that, wish you a great day. Take care.